This is music, and this is Collecting in Style. In this video, I'm going to talk about something that is very individual, I think. There are lots of different factors at play, a lot of different preferences at play. I'm going to talk about buying patterns because I think no matter what you collect, maybe except beer bottles, but that might even also involve that. No matter what you collect, there will be an element of trading, right? You will of course acquire items for your collection, and very often you acquire these through buying them. There will also be people that trade, items, and people that have to sell items for different reasons. And of course, people that give away items, like we see very often in the VCLT aspect of the vinyl community or the music community. But there are lots of different individual preferences. So in this video, I'm just going to go through my buying patterns and maybe even try to make sense of them to myself, I guess. I like buying online and I like going into the wild. Now, obviously, over the last 2 years with everything that's going on, I've done more online buying than I've done buying in the wild. But I have still had the chance to go out and pick up stuff in the wild. So it's not all online. But naturally, there's more of that going on these days, right? Now, if we take going out into the wild first, there are two kind of very different experiences for me, obviously, but there are still some kind of overlaps between them. But one difference is that I will typically buy more items when I buy stuff online than when I go into the wild. Because, and I'm sure you've all experienced this, when you go into the wild, if you go to a well-stocked record store, it can be a bit overwhelming to have to flip through everything. I typically don't buy as much when I go into the wild because, flipping through their stock can be time consuming as well. And it can be overwhelming. And if you're on a schedule, tight schedule that day, you might not have time to flip through everything. So typically when I go into the wild, I have like two approaches. I have either the I'm on a tight schedule approach, where I go to the section I'm interested in, I flip through it. If there's anything I want to pick up, I'll pick it up, I'll go and pay, and I'll leave. So not that, not the old school record store experience that a lot of people talk about online. This is more like the I got stuff to do record store experience. So I will, as I said, I will typically go to the section that I'm interested in. When I'm not on a tight schedule, I will allow myself to check more sections, like more genres, for example, more different media. I will always check CDs and full length, like 12-inch vinyls. I will always check those sections when I'm on a day where I'm not in a hurry. I'll give myself time to flip through it. I will kind of like, I think a lot of people that do that, put aside a pile of things, and then I'll go through the pile afterwards to see if, do I really want this? And in most cases, the answer is yeah. But for the most part, I will buy fewer items when I buy stuff in the wild. I will be more focused, and sometimes it's overwhelming. Sometimes it could be even stressful. That's why I don't do record store days. That's just too stressful. I'm not prepared to stand in a line or in a queue for hours just to maybe get to pick up something. And to be honest, most of the items that get released on record store days, I'm not interested in them anyways. And you know, I can always go on another day to look for stuff that I am interested in. So I don't do records. I don't want the buying experience to be stressful, right? Because collecting is, to many people, but to some people it's a profession, but to many people it's a hobby. It's something you do in your spare time. It's something you do to unwind, and so on and so forth. So that's why I have sort of set up that kind of system when I go and buy stuff in the wild. So what about buying online? Now, this is typically more leisurely for me per definition, because you have a basket or shopping cart or whatever it's called, depending on the shop. You can put stuff in it. In most cases, you can even log off and come back a couple of days later. The only sort of danger is that if it's like a limited thing, they only have a couple of copies of, somebody else might, you know, have nabbed it and it's sold out, but you just got to live with that. So I typically take much more time when I shop online. And I will typically, just to sort of add some kind of system to it, I will sort of set the filters, typically set the filters to a specific medium. So like vinyls, and very often you can sort of select used or new. So I'll select maybe used, and then I'll just flip through them virtually, and whatever I find that I like, I click it, put it into the shopping basket. I do the same thing with other media, CDs, and so on and so forth. And then afterwards, I treat the basket as a pile, right? A maybe pile, and I'll go through it, and I'll sort of, okay, no, this one is too expensive, that one goes out. This one, I actually don't need it, that one goes out as well, and so on and so forth, right? So to sort of control it that way. And I do this when I buy on Discogs. I do this when I buy in you know, online web shops as such. I do this when I buy from Bandcamp artists as well, right? Leisurely, inbox, go through the inbox. This one, I don't need it. It goes out. This one, I'm gonna keep that, right? So so I guess where they kind of overlap, the two sort of different buying experiences to me, is sort of the maybe pile aspect. And I think the maybe pile aspect is kind of like a sort of a gatekeeper thing, and it's a thing to prevent buying from going out of hand. I don't know if a lot of people also do that. I can imagine a lot of people actually do that. I know collectors that collect other things, they use like maybe piles like that, and what they of course use it for is very often pile things up and then see if they can strike some kind of deal with the seller. But you know, in a retail store, that's kind of difficult, and online sometimes it's impossible, sometimes it is possible. But I prefer, like on Discogs, right? A lot of people that sell on Discogs are private collectors, so that's where you could perhaps do some bargaining. But I always sort of choose to respect the price they've set. If they set it too high, I'm just not gonna buy from them. I'm gonna buy the item elsewhere, basically. So yeah, that's how I go about it. My principle is, you know, I want to support the local record stores, online or in the real world, in the wild. Of course, in the wild, it's going to be very local record stores, because it's going to be the record stores in the area where I find myself. So that's typically in Copenhagen. But if I'm in another city, I will go in, if I have time for it, I will go to the record stores, some of them, or one of them at least, check it out, pick something up if they have it. And that's why I primarily buy from record stores, like small record stores, web shops, Danish ones, but also, you know, occasionally And that's typically through Discogs. If it's like a record store somewhere else, they will have a shop on Discogs. So I will use that if I can. I also like buying from private collectors because I know 9 times out of 10, they've taken really good care of the item that I'm buying. But I prefer buying from like record stores that have online shops if I buy online, which of course I've done a lot of over the last couple of years because of the health crisis that's going on. I do also like to buy from labels like High Roller, Pure Steel, Hammerheart, and so on and so forth. A couple of times a year I like to pick up some hauls from those or from labels like that. So because then I also feel like, okay, I support these underground labels or semi-underground labels at the very least. So I don't feel like I'm letting down anyone by going straight to the label occasionally to buy stuff. I do go to some online, like maybe not like overall retail stores, but for example, I buy something from EMP every now and then. They've specialized in merchandise and apparel, and they also have some media like CDs and things like that. Very often, however, their discounts don't apply to media, so I don't buy from them that often, maybe once or twice a year. CD-ON is another similar, I think they're based in Sweden. CD-ON is another kind of similar shop, but that's more like an electronics store. They also have music media, so I buy from CD-ON occasionally as well. I've also, for the first time, I placed 2 orders at Plastic Head. So let's see how that turns out. If I end up having any Brexit issues, because it's Plastic Head in Great Britain, I might not buy anything from them anymore. I'm currently from British retail and vendors. I'm kind of like testing the waters. So if I buy something from a British vendor and I get into Brexit trouble, which means that high tariffs and extra fees and all that stuff, I probably will not buy from them anymore. I know it's kind of a shame because I'm kind of punishing that store for a decision that was made by people that voted for the Brexit. So I know it's kind of unfair, but you know, I also gotta, you know, watch out for my own personal economy, right? So I'm buying from Britain. I'm currently testing the waters, right, to see how the shop handles the Brexit issue and so on and so forth. I don't know yet how Plastic Head, how they do it. JPU Records, they're actually based in Britain. They've done a good job, so I'll buy more stuff from them occasionally. I mean, they're very, very niche. They focus on Japanese music, so it's not a store I buy from all the time. But yeah, so Brexit has made buying stuff from Britain a bit of a pain in the neck. Gotta be honest. It's a shame because I think it will probably punish, in a way, Brexit will punish small businesses and private sellers that don't have access to, you know, taking care of paying the tariffs and the fees and all that sort of stuff. So the individual buyer has to pay the, for example, the import taxes and so on and so forth. So I'm afraid it will hurt a lot of Bandcamp sellers, the artists themselves, because a lot of them just don't have the means to pay for the buyer's import fees and so on and so forth. So that's a bit of a problem. I still will buy occasionally from artists on Bandcamp because I want to support them, but probably not as much because I mean, the import tax and the handling fees and all that stuff can be so expensive that it'll cost just as much as buying 2 CDs or a t-shirt or something would. And in the long run, that's just not tenable. So yeah, it's really sad, this Brexit issue. I think it's made things a lot more difficult. But so yeah, I prefer buying from small record stores when I buy online. I prefer buying from local ones in the wild. I have no problem buying from labels, especially if it's like underground labels or semi-underground labels that I feel are doing a really good job. Thanks for watching.